Hey guys, just wanted to check in and touch base with you. This week you've got your first test. Hope things are going well. Hope that you feel confident, feel good about what you've got coming down the pipe, and I hope that that the lessons, the lectures that I've given you have helped. In this quick overview, I want to give you just a couple of things to consider before you take the test. Some things that you may want to focus up on. So you understand what's coming down the pipe. I meant to give this to you yesterday, a little bit behind. Okay, so the test itself will be 120 minutes, so you'll have 2 hours, and you will be asked to choose 4 questions out of a potential 6 for this test. So I've given you 6 questions, ask you to answer any 4 you choose. What I would like you to do is answer them as completely as you can. They are critical thinking questions, so this isn't going to be something that you can just necessarily go into the book and try and pull things from. And in fact, I would say even in 120 minutes, it probably will not have time to go and try and look a bunch of stuff up on every single one of the questions. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I'm looking for quality over quantity, but that is not to say that your answers should be drastically short. I would say that probably, I don't know, 2 to 3 paragraphs, maybe 4, should be enough to answer any one of these questions. That being said, if you wanted to expand, it's not necessarily a bad thing. What I would ask you to do is not chase rabbits. In other words, don't, get on a tangent that is not connected to the question. I will always be going back to the prompt that you are answering, and I will make sure that you guys are in fact answering that question. If you go on to something that is not related to the question that's being asked, then that will not go well for you. Final piece of instruction before I give you some overview of things to focus on is please make sure that you rewrite the question. This lets me know exactly what it is that you're trying to answer, so I know which of the 6 questions you are choosing to answer. So rewrite the question at the beginning of each one of them. This will allow me to understand what you're answering. It will also give you something that you might be able to go back to very easily as you're writing and answer. Okay? All right. So, without any more delay, let's go ahead and talk about the things that I would urge you to pay attention to as you get ready to answer or take this test. Okay. The first thing that I would suggest is go back and particularly pay attention to how important text was in the early foundations of the United States or the colonies. Now, as we talked about in some of the lectures, the idea of movable text in particular was a paradigm shifting invention. We went from a culture where the world was very, or where information was closely guarded and even arcane in some cases, to a world where the masses began to have access. But there's a whole variety of different things that came with the idea of text for the masses. So I would go back and look at, say, all the different influences of movable type and how that particular innovation changed the world, changed our perceptions of the world, changed our expectations of information, maybe even religious, social, political, economic. All of these elements were changed in some way by the addition of movable type. So when we talk about, I would urge you to pay attention to that. I'm just going to leave it there. We're going to spend a lot of time. There's several questions that talk about the early American colonies. So what I would urge you to pay attention to are things like the relationship between printing and religion, printing and colonization. Be able to talk about specific examples of how the 2 or 3 items are interrelated. That's something that, okay, had a little bit of a hiccup there. But anyway, going back to the discussion, be able to talk about, again, the relationship between printing, text, and, say, religion, politics, the accessibility of information within the American colonies. All of these things will be something to pay attention to. On that same line, we're not just talking about books, but we're also talking about newspapers, broadsides, pamphlets. Pay attention to the challenges that early printers faced, early newspaper printers faced. What were they? Why? What goals did the printers have, and what were the challenges that impeded their goals? So we're going to have a question that deals specifically with newspapers in the American colonies. Pay attention to that. Major issue in the early colonies, the Stamp Act of 1765. What was it? Why was it important? What were some of the implications, both at the time and lasting implications of the Stamp Act of 1776? As we move forward, be able to discuss the political importance of the press throughout the 1700s and 1800s. There's a lot of different issues that popped up with regard to the press during that time period. Be able to discuss some of these issues, some of the important figures, and some of the lasting impacts of or the lasting notions and ideas that came out of some of the issues that popped up during that time period. Finally, another major issue that popped up in this module was the Zenger trial. The Zenger trial. Be able to discuss what the trial was, what it involved, and what were some of the major implications that came out of it. Some of the things that even to this day are still significantly important. Okay, so if you cover those things, if you pay attention to those issues, I think you should be fairly equipped for taking this test. Now, the test itself, I want to make sure I get this right, should be completed by February 16th. By midnight. Okay, so be able to finish this before the 16th at midnight, and you should be good to go. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, as always, get in touch with me, and I'd be more than happy to help any way I can. All right? Well, good luck. I look forward to seeing your responses, and y'all have a great week. Bye.